What happens when the tortured pen of Greene, a writer who exposed the darkest corners of the human soul, faces Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king who found serenity even in the storm of empire? Doubt versus discipline. Shadows versus light. These two worlds collide in a debate you won't want to miss. Because in the clash between despair and wisdom, you may just discover something about your own life. Stay until the end, and don't forget to subscribe. Welcome to Greene versus Marcus Aurelius.
I am Marcus Aurelius, once Emperor of Rome, but more importantly, a student of philosophy. You bring me the figure of Greene, a man who painted human frailty in shadows and ink. He wrote of despair, betrayal, and the restless torment of the heart. Yet I ask, must we drown in that despair, or can we rise above it? Life is suffering. To deny this would be folly. But within that suffering lies a chance for discipline, for order, for purpose. The storms that Greene captures with his pen are real. Men deceive, nations fall, temptation lurks. I have seen these storms not in fiction but in blood and dust, in battlefields and palaces where ambition devoured souls. And still, I chose not despair, but serenity. For what is despair but a judgment we cast upon the world? When we say, all is lost, we surrender before the fight even begins. I say instead, nothing is lost so long as virtue remains. The man who clings to justice, to courage, to wisdom, to self-control, that man is never defeated, even when the world turns against him. Greene gave us the beauty of brokenness, but I will not worship at the altar of despair. Darkness tempts us to believe it is the only truth. Yet I have looked upon darkness every day of my reign, and still I sought the light of reason. I wrote not for glory, not for history, but for myself, reminders scratched in the night. You could die today. Hold fast to virtue. Do not be ruled by passion. Do not be consumed by grief. A man may betray you. A kingdom may crumble. A friend may fall to vice. These things lie beyond your control. But what lies within your command is your own mind. And no shadow, no whisper of despair can master a man who governs himself. I do not condemn Greene. His art has value, for it forces us to see our own weakness. But I say to him, weakness is not destiny. You are not doomed to remain broken. For every soul, however wounded, has the chance to rise through reason and discipline. So I stand before you, not as a man untouched by sorrow, but as one who has walked through sorrow and chosen calm. I say to you, despair is a luxury we cannot afford. Serenity is the duty of every man who seeks truth. That is my case, and I await Greene's reply.
I'm Greene. I never ruled an empire, nor commanded armies, but I lived in another battlefield, the human heart. You speak of serenity, Marcus, of rising above despair. Noble words, strong words. But tell me, have you ever tried to quiet the chaos of a man's soul when betrayal festers like an open wound? I wrote of sinners and saints, though sometimes they were the same person. I wrote of priests who doubted God while serving him, of spies who betrayed nations while longing for love, of ordinary people who could not escape their guilt. These are not abstractions. These are lives, fragile and trembling. You call despair judgment. Perhaps it is, but it is also a truth that burns in silence. Men drink themselves into oblivion not because they wish to, but because hope has abandoned them. Lovers cling to one another not because they trust, but because they fear the void when the embrace is gone. You tell them, be serene. I tell you, serenity often comes too late. You see, Marcus, your wisdom is clean, ordered, disciplined. But life, real life, is stained. It leaks through the cracks. I have walked into hotel rooms where loneliness screamed louder than any philosophy. I have sat with exiles who had nothing left but the bitterness of memory. These people did not need marble statues of virtue. They needed someone to tell their story, someone to show that despair itself can be holy because it reveals the depth of our need. I will not deny that men can rise, but they fall again and rise again and fall once more. The cycle is endless, and in that cycle, despair is not an enemy. It is the companion that reminds us we are human. Without it, where would compassion come from? How could we understand the suffering of others if we refuse to touch the darkness within ourselves? Marcus, you held an empire. I held a pen. And with that pen, I traced the outlines of the broken. Not to glorify despair, but to show its face. Because only when you see the cracks can you know what light truly is. You say serenity is duty. I say despair is honesty. Perhaps between the two lies the whole of human truth.
Graham, your words pierce deeply. You speak of men drowning in loneliness, of betrayals that rot the soul. Yes, I do not dismiss such pain. Even emperors are not immune to the weight of despair. I knew fear. I buried children. I stood on battlefields where the stench of death rose with the morning mist. Yet in all of it, I sought not escape, but alignment. To recognize that suffering, too, belongs to the order of the universe. You say despair is honesty. I answer, despair can be faced, but it must not be enthroned. If a man allows despair to rule, he becomes its slave. But if he learns to endure, to act rightly even in the shadow of grief, then despair loses its chains. Philosophy is not marble untouched by cracks. It is mortar holding the cracks together. I do not reject sorrow, I transform it into strength.
And yet, Marcus, strength itself can become another mask. I have seen men who endured, who acted rightly, but whose hearts were deserts. Duty fulfilled, but love abandoned. You speak of transforming sorrow, but in my world, sorrow often resists transformation. It lingers, poisons, corrodes, and that corrosion is also truth. You wish to guide men toward serenity. I only wish to remind them that serenity is not always possible. Sometimes honesty lies in admitting the failure, in naming the darkness. I cannot offer marble, but I can offer recognition. And in recognition, perhaps a flicker of compassion. Between your order and my despair, humanity wanders, fragile, divided, alive.
In the clash between Graham Greene and Marcus Aurelius, we have walked a thin line between despair and serenity, between raw human frailty and the call to inner strength. One offers a harsh honesty of a world drenched in shadows. The other, the calm discipline of a mind seeking harmony with fate. Both leave us with a question that cannot be easily answered. Do we survive by embracing despair or by mastering it? Who do you think won this debate? Comment your choice below and subscribe for more battles of philosophy and life.